All righty, let's do it live on this Monday. It is the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Network. And wherever you are, you have a chance to obviously tune in and listen and participate. You can check us out on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, also on YouTube. And when you go over to YouTube, just type in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe if you have not done so already, and you will be ready to go. Do appreciate all of you who have tuned in. And with a little over a month, we are here at Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network, and so great to have you along. Okay, so it could have been a much better weekend. Cavaliers, I wasn't so surprised about Friday's show. Young Jack was in here, and Jack kept repeating Cavs in five. And I said, well, it seems like I don't want to go that far. Cavs in 7. I thought they would lose on Friday. Now, I didn't think it would be as bad as it was on Friday, but I thought they would lose on Friday. And I thought they would rebound and then win on Sunday, rebound being the key word. Pardon the pun, but it was I needed to play it like that. It was bad. I mean, it was bad. And so far, they are down 3-1. We have seen how things have transpired. Hopefully the Cavs can keep this thing going and win at home on Wednesday. They will certainly have a loud and raucous crowd behind them. We know that, but we just don't know game to game what we are going to see from our Cleveland Cavaliers. They fall yesterday, as we said, down 3-1. Donovan Mitchell picked a really bad time to have his worst playoff performance, and here we are. Now, I know there's a lot of overreaction, and I know there's a lot of frustration, and that's okay. Okay, that's kind of what happens after games like this. We were all fired up going into this series. We had all the trash talk coming from the fans and the hosts of New York, and so that makes it even more emotional, if you will. Some of the overreaction, some of the frustration is warranted, some of it is not. And I think what I would like to do today, with your help, of course, 216-626-7901 is the number to get a hold of us. 216-626-7901. Is kind of parse through, what do we have good reason to be upset about, and what are we kind of grasping at straws and need to just chill out a little bit? Because I think there's some of both. Like, I'm not going to sit here. Nick jokes and says, the voice of reason. I'm not always going to, we got to think of the good, and there's not a whole lot good. You're down 3-1, and you've gotten your ass beat. I mean, it's been a behind the woodshed butt whooping. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. They've gotten killed on the boards. They got killed on the boards again yesterday. 17 offensive boards. And now I know that New York is a very good, if not the best, offensive rebounding team in the league. But, Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, and I mean, all these guys, are Josh Hart. They've been getting, it's not just Mitchell Robinson, who's probably the best in the game. It's everybody crashing the glass. And one thing that I think has been very, very frustrating for me, watching these two games in New York was both games. Friday, I understood. Friday, I don't want to say I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I certainly wasn't expecting what I saw and how bad it was. But like I said, I kind of thought they lose Friday, they win on Sunday, and we go back to Cleveland, knotted at 2. Wednesday's going to be crazy, and that didn't happen. Now, in large part, why didn't that happen? Well, in both games in New York, Game 3 and Game 4 yesterday, the Cavaliers came out deer in headlights. Like, I mean, they were overwhelmed. And I don't know what it is. Do you say like, oh, they were awestruck? They didn't. Well, they are professionals, but I do think that the crowd, I do think the ambiance of Madison Square Garden, I do think the moment, all of that factored into a team that was, they were a bit overwhelmed. They were hurried. They were rushed. They just didn't look comfortable, which was, I'm sure, talked about in the Knicks locker room, talked about all over New York. Like, you know what? Even before the series, we heard it. You know, the Cavs aren't going to be ready for this sort of thing. Cavs aren't going to be ready. And then Game 1 came, and we're like, oh, boy. They really. But then Game 2 came, and the Cavs just said, you're not doing this. And we felt really good how they played. We felt really, really confident that, okay, they got one game out of their system. And it wasn't like, okay, they roll from here, but you expected a good series. You expected a good effort. You expected 48 minutes of solid basketball. And unfortunately, in the playoffs, you get this far in the season, playing 27 minutes or 32 minutes or 41 minutes isn't going to cut it. And sure as hell isn't going to cut it against a team like the New York Knicks, coached by Tom Thibodeau. Because they're going to bring it and have brought it for the better part of 48 minutes each and every game. Okay, Game 2, it was... But it's just... This is where the frustration lies mostly for me. The front court has been dominated. Now, we can say, yes, Robinson is very good, Hartenstein is very good, and they just... Obi Toppin played the entire fourth period yesterday, and Thibodeau, by the way, that was like a surprise in New York. Thibodeau, people were like, what is Tom Thibodeau doing? That's when things are going your way, and the Knicks are up 3-1, when things are going your way, everything you decide to do, every button you push, it just works. And Obi Toppin played the entire fourth quarter, and he was outstanding. That was a guy that was kind of, I wouldn't say the doghouse, but, not many people, including, and most importantly, Tom Thibodeau, had a whole lot of faith in that guy, seemingly heading into the series. That has changed. I don't know what the best way to describe this is. Is it the Cavs being overwhelmed? Are the Cavs just... Are they not on the Knicks level talent-wise? I don't necessarily believe that. But I heard Jeff Van Gundy say something. And I love Van Gundy and I love Mark Jackson. More about that from Game 3 here in a few moments. But Van Gundy said, I don't necessarily buy into the idea of playoff experience, and that makes a big... Who am I to argue with Jeff Van Gundy? But in the same breath that he said that, he also said, these Cavaliers looked way too amped up. Isn't that a product, we hope, of playoff experience? Because it's not that these guys, just look lost and are going to look lost moving forward. These guys are very young. Some of the key Cavs did not have... Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro. None of those three have any playoff experience. Those are three pretty very key guys. And what you did expect was Donovan Mitchell to come out and play well, and, well, that didn't happen. So I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated like all of you because the effort, little things like, I thought the ball was going to go out of bounds, so I didn't really hustle. You can't do that in the postseason. Like, this is why I say, like, I was screaming at my television in game one, and I said, I'm not one of those guys. I don't usually yell at the TV, but it's those hustle plays and the offensive rebound after offensive rebound after offensive rebound that does kind of bring you out of your seat and make even the most timid or the shyest of folks pretty vocal. But you can't, and I saw this time and again, whether it was Jetty Osman, whether it was Darius Garland, whether it was, whoever it was, ball's, kind of in the corner and it's about to go out of bounds and, it's going to go. Maybe in game 22 that happens, okay? Maybe in game 31 of the season that happens and, ball's going. In the playoffs, it's just different. Okay, and they know that. Like, I agree with Jeff Van Gundy that it's not like all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, we don't know the playoffs are here and that we got to ratchet up the intensity. But I do think both games in New York and even game one here in Cleveland, they looked so rushed and not a good rushed, not not one of those where. Hey, let's go. We're feeling it. We're in a groove. Let's get the ball and go. Let's do this. Let's do that. They looked like just out of sorts. Nobody looked comfortable at the start of game 3 or game 4, and it hurt them. Now they came all the way back, and God love them for that. I didn't expect it to happen, but they came back. They had a lead at one point, but then in the end, and this is the big one that I think everybody's talking about today. And probably I would say is leading off your list of frustration is this is what we all waited for from Donovan Mitchell, right? This is what we were waiting. Okay, well, he's going to take over. And, well, he's going to take over. He's not going to take over. He's clanking everything. He didn't even look confident. Like you saw in the first 2 games, and I know in game 2 it was all about Darius, but when Donovan's in that rhythm, the ball just looks awesome coming out of his hand. I mean, it just he strokes that thing. He looks so confident, and it just never materialized, I thought, in either one of those games. Even game 3 where he had 22, yeah, okay. But yesterday was begging for him. Like it was put on a silver platter. And it was, okay, Donovan, take us home. Make those big shots. Somehow find a way. And yeah, I've heard the people that say, well, you know what? JB Bickerstaff has to do a better job of creating something for him. And I'm not disputing that. I'm not sitting here saying that JB Bickerstaff has coached his ass off, but I certainly don't agree with some of you who really are overreacting. And this one is a big overreaction. JB Bickerstaff is in over his head, blow it all up. No, that's not. I know we've done that in the past with our football team. Don't do that here. Like, and the good news is Kobe Altman, like, the Cavs haven't gotten to the point where they're at right now. And I know they're down 3-1, but the Cavs have not gotten to this point by Kobe Altman listening to, heck, 2 years ago, blowhards like myself, or people that said, oh my gosh, that you got to do this, you got to do that, and get rid of this guy. Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey have stuck to a plan, and do they need to tweak things? Do they need to, in some cases, maybe wholesale changes in some spots in the roster? Sure. But this wasn't built in a day. I think we forget, like, we get so excited, as we should. Last year, you're not expecting anything from the Cavaliers, right? Or 2 seasons ago. Not expecting anything from the Cavaliers. And what do? They play in turn. Wow, this team's going to be exciting. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, this year, man, they're going to make it they're going to represent the East in the finals. Easy. And I'm not making excuses for them, but just this is where we probably have to take a little bit of a breath, maybe even a big breath, and say, okay, they've gotten their asses beat. There's no doubt about that. This series probably won't last beyond 6 games. But, they have a lot of core pieces in place. No, you're not firing JB Bickerstaff. No, Donovan Mitchell is not a bust. But, yeah, he's got to be better in those situations. But like I said, this thing wasn't built overnight. And like the Browns in 2020, after they had the 2020 season, everybody just assumed, well, all right, add water, throw it in the microwave, 2 minutes, time cook, let's go, and the AFC Championship next year. It doesn't work that way. At this level of sport, it doesn't work that way. I mean, sure, things can, you can get some luck on your side. You can get hot. We saw, the Indians of 2016. But in large part, this is a process. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is let's not get too far ahead. You can be upset. I'm upset. Like I said, I'm not a guy that yells and screams at my TV, and I was doing it regularly. But we can't forget that this is a process, and they've done a pretty damn good job just to get here. By the way, let me bring in Nick Padone here, esteemed social media guy and producing today. And Nick was in New York. I was trying not to laugh. How was your trip, Nick?
It was a good time. First time in the city. I've been to New York, the state before, but it was my first time in the city. First off, way too much, way too many people. Would never want to live there. Honestly, would maybe never even want to go back. Like, it was packed with people. It's a tourist trap. It's something that you have to experience once, but it definitely wasn't glamorous by any stretch. But the trip was fine. The Cavs obviously didn't live up to hype, and I think you've crushed it thus far.
I just feel like I said, we're going to start naming some names.
Yeah.
Name names.
And we want to hear from the people. 216-626-7901. We're also live on the YouTube Chico Bormann Show. We'll read those comments off on the YouTube live stream throughout the show. I was on Twitter yesterday, Chico. I saw the hot takes, and I saw people throwing around the names. Maybe is it Jared Allen? Is he the problem? Is he the movable piece?
I saw you say. I think you said, I'm not sure about Jared Allen. Now, in the moment, it's okay to say things like that.
Exactly. But when you take that 1,000-foot view and when you have time to sleep it over and think it over, this is year one of them trying something completely new. I mean, had the Donovan Mitchell thing, which was a Hail Mary for them. I mean, everyone thought that he was going to be a Knick. The Knicks had the better package. They threw a Hail Mary there. It worked. It expedited their process. But this is year one of something completely brand new. And we see time and time again that things like this take time. How about the New York Knicks? Remember when Trae Young embarrassed them in the NBA playoffs not too long ago? Yeah. Every young team has to go through stuff like this. And it sucks to say it does as a fan because we had so much fun with this team all year. And the thought that it's one game away from being over, Chico, it sucks. And of course we want people held accountable for that. But I think the realistic side of things, and I think the way that the organization now operates with Kobe Altman and JB kind of in lockstep with ownership, you hope, they understand that this series wasn't exactly night and day. And they also understand that, that Giannis guy, he's healthy now. And the Bucks and the Heat both look really good. So it was never championship or bust this year. It was really all about figuring out something new and getting that experience. And they've done just that. And I think that's a win in and of itself. It's obviously a bummer, but I don't know. I'm not as pressed about it as I think some people are that are calling for a coaching change just because Nick Nurse got fired.
Right. Yeah. Come on. They're not. Wait a minute.
Dude, I saw tweets that Nick Nurse is available. The Ime Udoka thing, he's available. So I saw tweets from Cavs fans, Chico, saying, okay, you have a plethora of coaching options available now. Are you content with JB Bickerstaff? And we were talking about it pre-show, man. Is the Brownsification of Cleveland sports, that everyone wants to make the Browns and what the Browns do the standard, because the Browns would do it and because Jimmy Haslam would fire JB Bickerstaff off because he felt like it.
And maybe Dan Gilbert, if he were, you know what I'm saying? Like, part of what we've given Dan Gilbert so much credit for, and I have, even through, some mistakes and wanting to, push every single button, we can't sit here and say, you know what, good for Dan Gilbert for giving Kobe Altman the free reign to kind of do what he wants to do. And, yeah, of course he has to run things by, Dan Gilbert. But for the most part, Dan Gilbert says, Kobe, you're my guy. I trust you. You do what you need to do. That's how it should be. That's how good organizations are run. And Kobe Altman, he didn't go from a guy, as much as some people want to, and I've been hearing this, well, why didn't you go after Josh Hart at the trade deadline? What the hell's wrong with you?
Roy Hachimura is playing a big role for the Lakers. What do you mean there was no upgrade available at the deadline, Kobe?
There's a first-round pick thing that Cavs didn't have and don't get me wrong, I love Josh Hart. He's the one guy. As we get further into this, and we're going to talk to Spencer Davies from the Basketball News coming up at 2:00 about this and kind of break it down even further. It wasn't just, matter of fact, you can make a case that Julius Randle really, he's been I don't want to say non-factor, but certainly not the factor we expected. Jalen Brunson has been incredible. This has been about a front court, as I said, a front court of Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, and company, absolutely just dominating the Cavs from a physicality standpoint, rebounding standpoint, all of it standpoint. And guys like, RJ Barrett came into the series. He wasn't really doing much. Now RJ Barrett's found it. Now it's Josh Hart, and Josh Hart's been that guy for them. We heard that a lot when we had, I think it was Alex Wolf from the Locked On Knicks podcast before the series started. He said, man, this guy really is the energizer buddy. Josh Hart is the guy that really gets that. Well, yeah, that 100%. And the thing is, when we talk about all of the offensive rebounds and we talk about the discrepancy in reboundings, period, you know what it is? It's not just, Mitchell Robinson, who's, pretty damn good. All those guys crash the glass. All of them. And that's something that I think the Cavs, I don't want to say that, you learn from it and next year they'll do that. Yeah, you should know in the playoffs. I'm not sitting here saying, well, hey, they don't know they're supposed to box out. Come on, they're babies. No, of course they do. But I don't think you can really simulate. How in football they'll say when you're getting ready to face a Lamar Jackson back, you can't really simulate that until, you're on the field. And I think that's really, in a nutshell for me, what has happened. Yeah, we can talk about Donovan Mitchell not being at his best. We can talk about J.B. Bickerstaff being outcoached at this point. And, but ultimately, I think it's just, a lot of this is new and you can't simulate. This is why playoff experience. I said this when they made it to the play-in tournament last year, that, man, if they could just get one real, in quotes here, one real playoff series, it would do them wonders. I'm not saying that means they're up 3-1 against the Knicks, but you can't simulate it. You can't just say, oh, well, you know what, they know what's coming. They didn't know what's coming. And I'd be willing to bet, even if they don't say it, Donovan Mitchell, they've kind of been deer in the headlights coming out here. The crowd has been, give it to them. I mean, give them credit. They can be obnoxious, but they've been waiting a long time for the New York Knicks to do something. And, man, they made that place a living hell. And the Cavs, they showed it, certainly at the beginning of games 3 and 4.
People don't realize, too, that stadium, the area around it is under construction because there's something going on with the subway. So that's a construction nightmare. The inside of the stadium is obviously nuts, packed with fans. But then you have people on the outside hanging on scaffolding and just going crazy because the Knicks are in the playoffs. I think it's everything.
Hanging on scaffolding.
Dude,
I love that.
The whole outside of the Garden, growing up, you see shots of the Garden, obviously, whenever the Knicks are on national TV. That's all scaffolding right now. So there were people literally like MGK at the Cavs championship parade just dangling by scaffolding, waving Knicks flags.
Is
and
it legal
jerseys
to
and-
hang from scaffolding?
I think at that point the cops kind of were just a lost cause. That
Oh, they were probably hanging from it as well.
yeah.
Everybody was into it.
Yeah, so I mean, just the atmosphere was crazy. Obviously, that's a New York basketball city, so it's just disappointing that was kind of the draw. I think the Cavs were kind of hoping that it was the Nets. The fans definitely should have been hoping that it was the Nets.
Yeah.
The Knicks did this to the Cavs in the regular season. A lot of people forget they played the Cavs so tough in the regular season. It's just a tough draw for an inexperienced team against a team where they have guys that have been there. Randall's been there. Obviously, Jalen Brunson beat Mitchell in the playoffs in the West last year.
That dude is special.
Yeah. So it's just a lot of factors, but I think all in all, this could be as simple. And I know it sucks for our jobs in sports talk where we're supposed to jump into this and dissect it and who did what wrong. I think it's as simple, Chico, as this is a really bad matchup for the Cavs. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, you have. And that doesn't mean that this Cavs front court and 216-626-7901, the Chico Bormann Show, here live on the Big Play Network. Also, you can find us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE and on YouTube by typing in the Chico Bormann Show and hit subscribe. You know, it's not as easy as saying, well, the front court, they're just not good. And it's not. Evan Mobley's a baby. I mean, Jared Allen, I will say this. You want to talk about a guy that very, very much disappointed me? Jared Allen. Jared Allen, in game 2, I thought Jared Allen was, because I know the talk centered around Darius Garland. I got that. I thought Jared Allen from the opening tap was everywhere. Like, I mean, it was like it, but that disappeared. Like a lot of guys did, but Jared, like a lot of guys, but he just looked lost. He looked like, and he didn't really feel comfortable in the paint. He didn't, I don't know how to say it. Like, you know what I mean? You know it when you see it, and he, along with many others, but he looked lost in games 3 and 4.
Just deer in headlights. And I'll say this, Chico, at that position, at a center position, which is now very expendable in the NBA, we see teams roll with, the Moses Browns of the world, the Draymond Greens of the world, who's really a dude that's 6'9". You don't need a center. So when you have a center who is making $100 million, you need that guy to be able to rise to the occasion. And some of the fire JB Bickerstaff tweets that I saw were, how could he have left Jared Allen in the game for so long? Well, I'll tell you why. You look at the spot track, you pull up his contract, and you see that they're paying the dude $100 million. He was just an all-star last year. Like, what's going on here? Where's the disconnect?
Well, now here's the second part of that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Who else was, this is where
we're going to throw Robin Lopez in a playoff game?
Right. I guess that's my point. And that's why when I talk about the process, this is what I'm getting at. Like, remember when the Browns, and I know the Browns aren't the perfect example here because they've had, let's just say they've had a lot of culture issues, and guys get. I don't want to go down this road. I like Stefanski. I like Barry. I think it's going in the right direction. I hope it's going in the right direction. But I guess, remember when Andrew Barry had all the splashes and they brought in, you had Jack Conklin and you had
Austin Hooper, John Johnson III. That was like the big offseason. I mean, Barry went nuts, yeah.
Right. Even before that one, though, like when it was a lot of the, you had the offensive guys and they had brought in Conklin, and you're thinking, man, this is going to be, a really good offense. And it should have been better, but we had injury, whatever. I don't want to go down that road again. But the one thing we did say, and I know I said, and I know a lot of my colleagues said, was, okay, Rome wasn't built in a day. And while he spent a lot of the offseason focused on the offense, kind of like now how they've been focused on the defense, like this is part of that building process for the Cavs. Now, do you have your core pieces? Sure. And do some of those core pieces have to be much better? No doubt about it. But now moving forward, okay, we've seen a guy like Jetty Osman, a guy like Isaac Okoro, who I've defended, and I like, is it They're not the only problem. They're not the biggest problem, but, well, you need something more out of that position. And, I think what you've learned, what Kobe Altman has learned, and this is something that you can't learn, and I need to emphasize this. Again, I know it's frustrating to hear. You can't learn it until you've done it, until you've seen it. Like, we can say, well, he should have known that going in. Well, first of all, he can only make so many moves. I mean, Donovan Mitchell cost him quite a bit. Now, I know we're coming to you the day after Donovan Mitchell basically laid an egg. He had 11 points. I mean, he was awful. And even he said it. He played like shit. That was his exact comment. And at least he owned it. They gave up a lot for him. And, they've had some nice picks and those are material. But, okay, now is the second stage of Kobe knows. Kobe knows a hell of a lot more than all of us. And like I said, I always go back 2 years ago when myself, a lot of people were questioning, what the hell is this guy doing? This guy is in way over his head. No, he's not. He knows. He's already thinking about what this team needs, and some of it's obvious. Well, you need tough. We need a Josh Hart type player. Yeah, absolutely they do. Why didn't you get him at the trade deadline, Chico? Well, because the Knicks offered a first-round pick. Cavs didn't have that. I mean, it's as simple as that. Almost as simple as that. So, I don't know. I mean, Nick, you were there representing us and hanging out with our guys from Tipico, and I'm sure you hopefully you at least enjoyed that part of it, because the basketball part of it for 2 days didn't exactly go your way.
For sure. And for those who, weren't aware, I was down there. We were kind of doing like a little documentary type thing, kind of documenting my first time in the city. Of course, obviously I was there for the Cavs and for the playoffs, but we definitely hit some cool locations. I mean, it's definitely going to be good for content. So I think that's a positive.
Now, were you ever in fear? You were donning Cavs gear, right?
Yeah, the whole time. I did. I only brought Cavs stuff, which I realized when I got there, because I flew by myself. I literally only brought a backpack, and I was like, everything that I have in this bag is Cavs.
My entire life is here. What did you ever have them? I'm not saying when you feared for your life. Hopefully that didn't happen, but where you're like, oh boy, this is they're getting very rowdy, and or were they?
No, because I had camera people with me. So if anything, like if someone was to swing on me, like maybe I really just fell into a good paycheck, because I literally would have assault captured right on camera.
There you go.
So so I wouldn't say that I was ever like fearful for wearing the Cavs stuff. I mean, got a ton of grief for it, of course, by the stadium yesterday, more specifically. But I mean, even just like walking down the streets, we were hanging out in Little Italy was one of the spots that we did some stuff.
Been there.
With
awesome.
Yeah, we ordered some pizza, and like even just eating pizza in the street, people yelling at me, "You're down 2-1," at the time after game 3. So yeah, definitely people were excited, but I was never fearful for my life. Was when I took that first yellow cab. I had never done a yellow cab. My whole life, my whole adult life, I've had Uber. So I've only ever Ubered, especially around any major city that I've ever gone to. Cleveland, you could Uber. Denver, I Ubered. Scottsdale, we rented a car when we went with the Guardians players. So I've never actually had that yellow cab experience. I did it this weekend, and it's crazy. They don't stop for anyone. They own the road.
That was okay. That's what I was going to say. I've experienced that. I'm not going to go the whole story, but when I was, this would have been 2000, it would have been, I go by the Browns draft. It would have been the draft that the Steelers got Ben Roethlisberger and the Browns took Kellen Winslow, and I don't need to go. But we went to, we had tickets for a Red Sox-Yankees game. One of my buddies is a diehard Red Sox fan. So we had these tickets. He was a bartender, and the rep came in and said, hey, if you want these, they're yours. And they were great seats. You go to the club level, all that good stuff. And it just happened to be draft weekend, right? So we're like, well, hell yeah, let's make it a road trip. So we go, and we took a cab from our hotel, which we had to stay in Jersey, which is not, it's right there, but so we took we took a cab to the ballpark for this Yankees Red Sox game the night before the draft there in 2000, I don't even know, 4, something like that. And what you know how you're like looking, and I'm sure you were doing the same thing, like you're looking, realizing like there's that much room, and I'm that much room between you and the next car. Like you can, I could read the text messages from the guys in the car, and you know
I'm making eye contact with the dude's kids in the back seat, and their dad's about to kill me because he's just cruising into my lane. Yeah, it's crazy.
They're like oblivious, which you have to be. I mean, if you're a cab driver in New York City, you have to be oblivious to it. Maybe even the cab drivers, they're ready for the big lights. Like
they are.
The cab drivers, it's like, well, there's an opening, I go. Not like, oh, hey, that guy went to the other lane. No, they just move if there's an open. They see daylight, they go.
They go.
It's like a running back hitting a hole in football. Daylight, let's go.
Yeah.
And it kind of freaks you the hell out.
It is.
First time that you're in that situation.
Absolutely crazy. And they have like signage all over the back of it. Like, you have to wear your seatbelt, huge fine.
I need more than a seatbelt.
Jail time. I'm like, oh, you don't have to. You could take all these signs down. Who's cruising around pinballing in the back seat of this thing with no seatbelt on? Like, yeah, you wear your seatbelt. No kidding. You walk out of there with a concussion if you don't.
You probably need to bring a diaper is what you need to bring. Like if your first time doing that, like it can be a little bit. It's nothing like I had ever experienced before. And you hear all the stories. That's the thing. People tell you, and you're like, it's just crowded. It's just traffic.
and it is.
It is a lot of traffic. But it's the mentality of how those drivers drive in there. Like I said, they see daylight, and then you got the guy that you're trying to wedge in between, and the guy in front of him laying on their horn. But
that's the thing too. The horns, they love the horns. You're sitting at a green light and it's time to go, and your driver's, about to go, and you got some guy 10 cars back just laying on his horn. Like, dude, you're never gonna get through this light regardless. Why are you laying on the horn? They all do it. There's no such thing as just a honk. They all just.
But that's what I said. The drivers are so immune to it. Those horns are going off, and they're talking to us about the pitching probables for that night between the Sox and the Yankees. They're like, that should be a good game. Who you got tonight? I'm like, dude, this guy's ready to like kill you right here. To hell with him.
So now they're kind of rude, and I actually got a tip from this from some people that were just in New York, really just a month ago before I took my trip. They were like, yeah, the Ubers there don't talk, the taxis don't talk. Like, there's no sense of even trying to talk to them. So me, I'm trying to fuck with, trying to mess with the guys.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah, get a little back and forth going with them, but nothing. They give you absolutely nothing. Hello, how you doing when you get in? Where we heading? And then when you get out, have a nice day.
Well, we gave them the scouting report on you before. Before you left. And so that probably didn't help matters. All right. 216-626-7901, the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. Also available on Twitter. Very easy. Chico Show CLE. We are streaming live as we speak, and you can check that out. Also on YouTube, type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and we certainly appreciate that. We're going to be talking to Spencer Davies coming up top of the hour. And he is with the basketball news. I know he has some thoughts. And like I said, if you're just tuning in, nobody should be telling you, oh, don't be frustrated. What are you frustrated about? What do you overreact? It's been a frustrating series. It was frustrating in game 1. And maybe it was just as frustrating when you play so well in game 2 that you think you're back to then go to New York and experience game 3 and 4. But you know what? Like, there's some things that, yes, will have to be addressed in the offseason. I'm confident that Kobe Altman will do that. And there's some things that, you know what? They're just going to be better because they've had this experience. And that includes the coach. J.B. Bickerstaff is 43 years old. And I promise you, the refrain throughout the season, well, he's he's the perfect guy to develop these guys. Like, yeah, these young guys. But when you get to the postseason, you're telling me that Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, guys go, I don't know, an entire half without being able to throw it in the ocean, and that's on J.B. Bickerstaff. You're telling me that guys are watching a ball go out of bounds? What's he supposed to do? Like, call a timeout and make them run suicides? He's supposed to up downs? Like, what you? It is what it is. They're out hustling you.
And people are saying, we'll make some adjustments. Is always just the blanket statement that people throw on this type of thing, but I get that it's a head coach's job to push the right buttons. And when you're in the playoffs and now, down 3-1, unfortunately, just like Thibodeau, it feels like he's pressing all the right buttons. When you find yourself down in these holes, it feels like you're just pushing all the wrong buttons, because if your guys aren't making shots, if your superstars aren't rising to the occasion, Donovan Mitchell makes a lot of money. DG makes a lot of money. He's a supermax guy. I mean, there's not much blame you could put on the coach, because your stars, your players just didn't rise to the occasion. And again, it's because it's their first trip. So,
and adding to that frustration is not only your stars and we knew here's the thing, we knew going into this series that the Cavaliers, they don't have a deep bench. I mean, we said it before game one that if we're going to go down the list as they do, check each box, who has the advantage. The Cavs are not going to get that advantage in as far as the bench goes. So it was going to be, they were going to be heavily reliant, as they were pretty much all season, but certainly in this series, with the guys and the starters and, maybe a couple, Karis LeVert and some others, but for the most part, it was going to be those starters. And, we saw one of those guys, obviously Darius Garland in game 2, was absolutely incredible. And Donovan Mitchell, until last night, wasn't horrible, but, you saw him in game 1. He had that unconscious. We need him to get that back for Wednesday.
Yeah, especially DG does play better at home, if anybody's looking for a fraction of hope.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the Cavaliers were never going to have the bench, or were never going to have those players outside of their starting 5 that were going to make noise. The Knicks, I mean, think about it. Julius Randle really hasn't done a whole lot. He's contributed. I'm not going to say he's just been a zero, but this comes down to Josh Hart. It comes down Obi Toppin. Let me say it again. Obi Toppin, who was not exactly, and yes, the guy from Dayton. And I remember being on the air when someone told me that if the Cavaliers did not draft Obi Toppin, that he was turning in his season tickets, which I called BS on then. I call BS now. It's still stupid, even after, he had a nice game there. But, seriously, Tom Thibodeau, everybody, we had Alex on from Locked On Knicks, and Obi Toppin hadn't done anything. I mean, we know he doesn't play defense. Obi Toppin played the entire fourth quarter, which Tibbs, you could have had that with tremendous odds that he's going to play an entire quarter, especially the fourth quarter with the game on the line. But he came and he showed up and he played well. R.J. Barrett finding his shot. What are you going to do? And Josh Hart obviously is legit. And again, I know the question, I know the frustration in large part has been, well, why didn't they go out and get him? They were interested in him. Yeah. Of course they were. I mean, he was on all of the, who were the rumors and the trade deadlines approaching. In the end, the Knicks had a number 1 pick to dangle and give him, and that's why he's there.
I have an idea. And I know we have Spencer joining us 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And, of course, we'd love to hear from the people, 216-626-7901. But I have an idea, Chico.
Let's do it.
Because it's the second wave of players, if you will, that's making the difference. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's going to go out there and get his. In a likely fashion, typically for the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell's going to go out there and get his.
Yep.
What if J.B. Bickerstaff, down 3-1, back against the wall, go to your junkyard dog. Go to Lamar Stevens. He was the guy that brought that mentality and that tenacity to you in the regular season years ago as an undrafted guy. Now, I know that he's limited offensively. I know defensively sometimes could be a little bit reckless. I know you don't want him playing superstar minutes in a postseason series, but if you are getting out-hustled by guys like Josh Hart, guys like Mitchell Robinson, why don't you look down your bench and go to your own guy that's a little bit nutty and that could get in there and scrap some things up? I not only, and now here's a hot take from me, I not only would play Lamar Stevens in Game 5. I'd start Lamar Stevens in Game 5 in Cleveland. I'm serious because I think they need to send that message that we need to be tough. And I think that's a guy. I think Stevens is nutty enough that if you look at him and you tell him to slow down Brunson, I think he'll go out there and do it. I really do.
Are you surprised? Like I said, it's JB Bickerstaff is certainly, not without blame too. But and one of the things that has surprised me, we saw Rubio in game. Did he play? Yeah, he played in Game 1. And I remember, nothing against Rubio. We loved him before he had the injury, but that's just it. He doesn't even look like he's 70%. Have you been surprised how many minutes he's gotten? I've been stunned.
Yeah. Again, it's the same thing as the Jared Allen situation. Is who else are you going to get? You don't have a backup point guard. That's your backup point guard, and you still have 2 more years of him on this deal that you just gave him in free agency. So they do have to figure out what's going on there, because you look at some of these other series early on in this Cavs-Knicks, I did think that, man, they're riding Rubio a lot. But you look, usually the 6-man or 7-man on a bench is a point guard, a ball handler that could handle an offense. Look at Bones Highland and what he's able to do, or Tyrese Maxey in Philly. The Cavs, it's Rubio, is their other guy that could handle the offense when Mitchell or Garland need a break, and it's he's giving you nothing. I mean, maybe you go point Jetty, but you're in a rock and a hard place there because you need that other ball handler. But yeah, he's been really bad.
216-626-7901. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll step aside for a little bit here, gather ourselves. We do know, by the way, it is NFL Draft Week.
Oh yeah.
Normally we'd be a little more excited because the Browns. But 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6 and a 7.
Come on, Chico. You don't have your PFF mock draft simulator in front of you? You don't have a prime list of candidates of what the Browns could do at 74?
I can't wait to add, we're going to have Nick Shook tomorrow, and we'll talk to our buddy Eric at home at 1.2, and we're hunting down some others. But, that's what I want to ask those guys. All right, let's just cut right to it. First question, obviously, who do you have the Browns taking at 74? Javon, the tackle out of Georgia,
Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly. You just if you can project that far out, then we need to head to Vegas.
Yeah,
we need to head to Vegas.
Yeah.
All right. Right now we're gonna head to break. When we come back, we'll play a little fair or foul with my buddy Nick Padone. Good to have him back in one piece here in studio. And as I said, SpencerDaviesBasketballNews.com. Right back into the Cavs after the top of the hour. It is the Chico Bormann Show. It is live right here on the Big Play Network. All righty, welcome back to the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network as we try to get through this Monday. All right, we know it's frustrating. We know actually the sun came out. Does that make you feel better? Probably not. But hey, Cavs are down 3-1. We'll get back into it with Spencer Davies from the basketball news after the top of the hour. But right now, Nick, let's transition a little bit. You had a nice little, I wouldn't say vacation. You were working your tail off, but you are refreshed, hopefully ready to go for another edition on the Chico Bormann Show of Fair or Foul. Mm-hmm. Take me out to the ball game.
All right, Chico, fair or foul? I'm back. I'm ready. Let's start here. Obviously, we wish we had a music bed, but for whatever reason,
That's all right.
music doesn't want to play. All right, so we just talked about Cavs playoffs. We'll do one Cavs fair or foul, and then we'll hit the other couple questions, and then we'll get back to Cavs with Spencer Davies at the top of the hour. So let's go with this. One Cavs question, then we'll let it die. Fair or foul, Jarrett Allen will be the Cavs starting center come September next year.
Fair. And look, he's been underwhelming to say the least. I mean, he has been. I thought in game 2, like I said, game 2, he was outstanding. He seemed to be everywhere on the floor, but in New York, he disappeared. I mean, he disappeared like other guys as well. But Jarrett Allen, we expected a little bit more. Now, Mitchell Robinson is maybe the best offensive rebounder in the game. You got Hartenstein, you've got Josh Hart, and then they're all crashing the glass. But yeah, we expected a little more out of Jarrett Allen. But that said, I don't see any reason to think he won't be the starting center next year.
All right. Well, the NFL draft is this weekend. We'll talk a little draft as the week progresses. The Browns currently have 8 picks in this draft. We'll go fair or foul. The Browns will have 8 rookies report to rookie minicamp in Berea. Will they be making all 8 selections? Fair or foul?
You know what? I'm going to go fair on that.
Wow.
Now, it can always be like you can still have trades and then a trade back and then you gain a pick and then you trade. Keep in mind, Andrew Berry, one of the things he always does, and he's done this since he's been here and even, when he was in Philly and other organizations, he likes to get a pick like second, third round, middle round for the next season. So I could see him accumulate, make a trade, and then give that pick back, trying to gain another one for the next season. So I'll go, I'm going to go fair on that.
Wow, big rookie class.
Yeah.
All righty, let's go to baseball. The Gardos host the Rockies this week. It's a 3-game series. Fair or foul, the Guardians will win over 2.5 games in this 3-game series against the Rockies.
Can you tell me how the bats are going to fare?
I think they're going to fare all right, man. I think we got a good glimpse of what this offense could be if Josh Bell's swinging that thing well. We saw Jose go yard this weekend as well. I think the bats could be here to wake up as we get into some hopefully warmer weather closing April and into May.
Okay, I agree with you. I think being home, hopefully staying home actually, will benefit them. The weather warming up, Jose kind of getting cooking a little bit. Josh Naylor. I mean, gosh, he had been in a horrific slump, and getting hits off lefties too. So
shouts to Tito for trusting him in those spots against lefties too.
Yeah, and by the way, Tito documentary on MLB Network last night. I missed it, but I'm going to watch it tonight. I'll go. I'm going to go fair on that. I think that the Rockies aren't very good. The pitching matchups, you still have Battenfield going tomorrow. I think Quantrill's tonight. So yeah, you're still kind of nursing things as far as the rotation, but I'll go fair on that one.
All right, let's go to this one. Sticking with the guards, Logan Allen had a nice pro debut. Let's go fair or foul. The Gardos will have another starting pitcher debut by the end of April. 6 days remaining. Do we get the Tanner start in the next 6 days? Fair or foul?
Okay, so I cheated a little bit and had Justin Latta on last week. And judging from what he said and not, didn't say come out and directly say it, it sounds like the answer to that is foul. But Tanner Bybee will be up there sooner rather than later, I think. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll go, but I'm going to go foul as far as the remaining 6 days of April.
Okay, sounds good. Let's wrap this fair or foul segment up. I know when we had Jack in here, young Jack, he threw you a fast food fair or foul, so I wanted to throw you my own.
Can I reenact the Jack fast food?
Yeah, go for
He goes, Chico, fair or foul? Wendy's is the best fast food.
it. Which I missed, by the way. What was your take on that?
I mean, I don't like comparing them all, and
Yeah.
I'm a Wendy's
Like
guy.
Wendy's?
I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't really had it in a while, but yeah, I like Wendy's a lot.
I'm a fast food connoisseur.
I used to be about 20 years. Now, if I do that, I won't be able to fit through the doors here of Big Play. In the studios, well, it's nice. It's a little
Tight.
yeah. So I wouldn't be able to maneuver in and out of here if I continued that.
All right, let's go last one. Fair or foul? Chipotle is fast food.
Fair, but I mean, in the words of that Costanza in the Seinfeld, where Jerry's buddy, it's fast food done, or no, it's quality food done quickly. Now they chop up all of that grill and that meat is, you hear the commercials.
Yeah,
She's like,
that was
hey,
my first job. I worked at Chipotle as my first job.
Really?
Yeah, fun fact.
Oh,
High school.
I bet you were fantastic.
High school
there.
Nick. Yep. I was jack of all trades. Did the line, did the dishes, did some cooking, fried the chips.
I think he had a Chipotle question in there too, and I forgot what it was.
Oh, damn. See?
But no, that's all right. No, it is, but it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Fast food.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chico. Well, that is fair or foul.
That is fair or foul on this Monday. We'll do it again tomorrow. Well done, Mr. Padone. All right. Hasn't been exactly job well done for the Cleveland Cavaliers over the last 2 games. I thought a split. I thought they would lose Friday. I thought they would win on Sunday. That didn't happen. So they go down 3-1, and they will host the New York Knicks coming up Wednesday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Let's bring in our good buddy Spencer Davies. He's with Basketball News, and you can follow him on Twitter at Spin Davies. The biggest reason the Cavs lost, there's a lot of them, but the biggest reason the Cavs lost those 2 games in New York was?
Honestly, I think it's mostly about the offensive rebounding and the turnovers. And I think that's something that we hit on last week before the series started, Chico, was can they take care of the basketball? Can they not play in small spaces? And that, I think, has been the story of the series. Mitchell Robinson is obviously out physical the bigs in the paint. I think, defensive scheme for New York has also made a huge difference. But I believe that it's honestly been just about taking care of the basketball and guys not making shots. And that's been just kind of the MO of what's happened so far. And I mean, the Knicks have outplayed them. They've outplayed them. They've hustled them. They've had a more, just kind of getting to the ball before the Cavs are type of feel. And it's just, it's been disappointing for sure.
So, Spence, I've been thoroughly entertained with Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. They actually, especially in Game 3, like I needed them. Otherwise, I don't know if I could have made it through, like the first half. Like it was that bad. The Cavs couldn't make anything. It was, and both teams really, they were hilarious. But Van Gundy had a comment, and he said, "Look, I don't buy into, playoff experience is a big deal. And now I don't necessarily think it's the end all be all, but he would later then say, wow, the Cavs just, they seem to be at the start of this game, whether it's the crowd, whether it's the moment, they seem to be just not able to get going in the early part of these games 3 and 4. To me, that is a testament to playoff experience, and that's not an excuse, but I do think there had to be some of that because, Spence, they seem to be just completely out of sorts, and particularly at the start of these games when that Madison Square Garden crowd was just raucous.
Yeah, I think rattled's the good word for it. Yeah, you brought up how, this has been a series that teams are not making shots. If you like offense, this is not the series for you. This is the knockout, drag out type of physical, nasty battle that we expected to see. But I feel like, yeah, the crowd has definitely played a hand in it. I feel like there's explanation and excuse. You can kind of put that in the middle. It's kind of a teeter a little bit. But yeah, no, I think that game 3 definitely was something that we could have seen coming just from the inexperience and all that. But the way that they started game 4 actually was quite surprising to me. They were able to actually make a few shots here and there, but defensively they looked a little bit kind of rattled, especially the adjustment early by JB Bickerstaff, throwing Darius Garland on Jalen Brunson. Didn't see that one coming. Eventually, went back to Karis LeVert on Brunson, and they threw a bunch of different looks at him, understandably. But yeah, they just didn't really have the juice coming out. And then the second quarter, again, it was the same old song and dance. You just can see Mitchell Robinson has no fear whatsoever of Jared Allen right now in the paint, or of Evan Mobley in the paint. Even Isaiah Hartenstein was out playing some of those guys in his backup minutes, and we saw that Mitchell Robinson barely even played the fourth quarter. So it's just it really is just about toughening up, and some of it has to do with defensive scheme too. I think as we've watched the series go on, I've seen a lot of overhelping from the bigs because you're going to look at where Brunson's getting to on the floor, and they're not retreating fast enough to get to the back to the basket to get the rebound or to do whatever they need to do to secure the ball. And a lot of the rebounding's got to be on, the guards and the forwards. And I think Karis LeVert did a really good job of that yesterday. I think Isaac Okoro has done an okay job of doing that too, but just not enough help for Jared Allen. If he's the helper, someone's got to come up with the rebound. And that just has not happened this entire series. The proverbial cherry on top is that when he is on that one-on-one matchup with Robinson's just boxing him out and just being stronger than him.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say, Spencer, and I think many have said, just look at the front court and they've been dominated, and they have. But a Tom Thibodeau coach team is going, and teams that usually are great rebounding teams, it's not just your front court guys you got to worry about. It's everybody crashing the glass, and that's one thing. Josh Hart is amazing anyway. I love watching that guy play, but Thibodeau played, I mentioned this in the first hour, Thibodeau played Obi Toppin the entire fourth quarter. Going into the series, if you would have told a Knicks fan, hey, Obi Toppin's going to play an entire fourth quarter in one of these playoff games, I think they would have said, no way, we don't want that. But, Obi Toppin played well. RJ Barrett's found his shot. Everybody is getting into the act, and I don't know if that's as much about, hey, tip of the cap to them, or what's going on the Cavs end as far as trying to defend that.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both, honestly, Chico. And you mentioned those two. I would even tip my cap to Miles McBride. I thought he did a really good job coming in and defending Donovan Mitchell for whatever that 5 to 7 minutes he played, whatever it was. They've just kind of got their identity and they know what they're gonna do. Tibbs has his kind of treasure trove of depth that the Cavs just clearly do not have right now. And I think, a lot of the questions about JB Bickerstaff are valid because there hasn't been a set rotation. We talked about this fluid thing that he's got going on last week, obviously. But that also has to come down to personnel as well. If you can't trust somebody for more than 5 minutes on the floor and you've got to play your starters, 40, 42 minutes, whatever the hell it is, then you clearly have a deficiency in that department. And, I think that we're seeing that show up against New York right now because it is usually when New York's reserves come in that you start to feel the flow of the game, become different. But at the same time, I mean, the Cavs were in position to win that game when it came to the third quarter. You saw the offensive actions that they had. Darius Garland getting off cuts. He was in motion. He was almost, basically in rover mode and making guys chase him. And that's what opened up the middle of the floor. And then you saw, Mobley get going with some dunks. You saw some playmaking out of the middle of the floor, which is what they do so well. So like those are the things that you kind of have to go back to. I think in game 5, sorry if I'm getting ahead, but I feel like in game 5 that you go back to the lineup that worked in game 2. I know that Isaac Okoro got in foul trouble early and didn't see the rest of the game and whatever like that, but Karras, I think coming off the bench just has more of a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of feel. I don't know if that was necessarily the best of adjustments in the last 2 games. Almost overthinking it in a way, I think. I think if they go back to that, they can take game 5. But again, I mean, are you going to be better at home in as far as a fast start goes, as far as hitting bodies first goes, as they were talking to us about in game 2? Because if that doesn't happen, then you're going home early.
Talking to Spencer Davies. You can follow him on Twitter at Spin Davies. He's with Basketball News. You can follow him, as we said, on Twitter at Spin Davies, also at Basketball News. Okay, we got to get to Donovan Mitchell. And look, there's been a lot of criticism for J.B. Bickerstaff, which some of it I understand, some of it I think is way overblown. When you're down 3-1 and you've lost games the way they've lost games, many people are culpable. One thing that I have heard, though, and I can't say I agree with, is that, well, JB needed to do a much better job of designing some stuff to get Donovan Mitchell free. Look, Donovan Mitchell was a superstar, okay? We've seen Donovan Mitchell go crazy and get that hot hand, and I that's not one I can blame or put the blame on JB Bickerstaff. And I think, Donovan, to his credit, kind of, he said it himself. I mean, I played like shit in the game. Are you buying into any of this criticism about, well, you know what, JB could have done a better job of creating for him? I'm not, but you know it better than I do.
When it comes to Donovan Mitchell, no. Donovan was missing. He was missing some shots in the second half that were just halfway in and out. I mean, those are the ones that really are killers. But he didn't have an offensive flow. I mean, because if you watch New York, what they do is that they put all these bodies in the middle of the floor and they put them all in the paint. So the Cavs are very, very, adept at using the high pick and roll. And when you have that kind of, those guys that are camping in the paint and they're not afraid of the guy setting the screen, and they're going to sit in the paint, they're going to make you make shots from the outside. Oh, why are they chucking? Well, that's because you're taking what the defense gives you, right? And again, that goes back to personnel. You got to have guys that can knock those shots down. Okoro did some of those in the first half. Like you had Karis LeVert hit some of those too even in game 3. Some catch shoots too in game 4. But when the paint is filled up with those kind of players and those bulky guys, that you have to find ways to get in those little spaces to find your way through. Like if you notice too, in a lot of these high pick and rolls, the Knicks defenders are making it so tight. How many times did we see steals? And how many times in the first quarter did you look up and Josh Hart was midway at half court about to score in transition? I think that literally happened 5 times in the first half yesterday. I was astonished. But it is defensive scheme. We know what Tibbs' calling card is, right? That's his thing, and they're making the Cavs beat them with the jump shots, making the Cavs beat them with physicality, and they just haven't been up to par yet. But with Donovan, I feel like if you watched him dribble the ball yesterday, it was weird. He
just
was
didn't
like
look
he didn't
confident at all. Yeah,
he didn't have a handle on the thing, and when you're throwing the doubles at him and whatnot, he's he's passing out of him fine. That's all fine and dandy. But like even in those ISO situations, just didn't. It looked like he just kind of had some butterfingers, honestly. It was weird. But no, you don't turn your back on Donovan. Donovan's going to respond in game 5. There's no doubt in my mind that Donovan responds in game 5 because he knows how bad he played. And like you said, he admitted it that he played like garbage. And that can happen even to the best of the superstars if you watch postseason basketball. And when your other guys aren't helping. I mean, I know Darius Garland chipped in. You looked at the big fourth quarter from Jared Allen, just scoring wise in the paint. But you're going to need more. You just need more points. They haven't given up they've barely given up 100 points in all 4 of these games. That should just tell you right there. You need more offense. You need more spacing, and you need more reliability from guys past 1 through 4.
So okay, that leads us right into the next question, and I know I'm gonna have to ask you to look into that crystal ball of yours. But how does this roster? I mean, it's not gonna. We're not talking about wholesale changes, but you're Kobe Altman, and I mean, look, and the other thing that I've said, and I know this is kind of long-winded, whatever, but everybody says, well, the playoff experience and, they should have known going. You don't know until you actually get in there. I mean, unfortunately, that's what playoff experience is all about. That's why I think it is a little bigger deal than some people want to make it. That said, Kobe Altman has seen it. We hope it doesn't end Wednesday or anytime soon. But when it does end, what is Kobe Altman's focus? What should that focus be looking ahead to next year?
Depth and a two-way wing, the same thing that we've been looking at the whole time. The problem is you don't have many assets to work with. You're gonna need to resign Karis LeVert because you don't want to make yourself devoid of talent, even though that's going to cost you a pretty penny. You put yourself in that position. This is the part of going out and getting a superstar that people don't like to admit. But sacrificing depth takes a minute to build back up again when you do go out and get a star like that. You could even look at, this isn't even really a fair comparison because the teams are completely different, but you look at Dallas, they go out and get Kyrie Irving. At the time they acquired him, they're above 500. They're looking at, what seed are we going to be in the playoffs? But they gave back Dorian Finney-Smith. They gave back Spencer Dinwiddie. These were legitimate role players that they had that ended up really crushing them at the end because they couldn't find a way to fill those gaps. Those gaps are important, maybe just as important as the star that you go in and get. So that's the question this offseason. How do you fill those gaps? And I think, one, you have to get healthy. You want to see, does Dean Wade, finally get this shoulder issue figured out, because that's the guy that they've leaned back on. You ask yourself, Lamar Stevens, is he part of this rotation? It's because, again, we talked about that revolving door at the 3/4 when they need to go to a wing. That's really their the only options. And side note, I am surprised that Lamar Stevens hasn't played in this series because he is the toughest guy on the team.
Nick Padone just said that, but before he came on. Yep.
Yeah, no, he is the toughest guy on the team. JB Bickerstaff will tell you, well, I don't know how much they're going to account for him on defense because, they're leaving Isaac Okoro open. They're leaving the perimeter open and stuff like that. Can he make those shots? What do you have to lose at this point to try it out? It's not like you have anyone set at that point. However, just going back to the offseason, you look at, you put all the options on the table. I know I see a lot of these, a lot of fans on the social media talking about, Jarrett Allen probably isn't it at the 5. Well, one, I thought this just wasn't the perfect matchup for the Cavs just because we talked about how similar they are and how physical they are and all that. But my question to those fans would be, okay, if you're watching your Jarrett Allen right now, what do you think all of the other GMs in the league are seeing? Do you think they're not watching too? Do you think you're going to get back in return what you want for Jarrett Allen? And secondly, is Evan Mobley ready to be that 5? Is he ready to take all of that physicality and all of that contact? Because he's struggling right now with Julius Randle. And bless his heart, he's 21, 22 years old, whatever it may be. But he's clearly not ready for that kind of workload yet, right? So what's your ideal 5 that you're looking for, right? And I think that's your main question. What's your ideal 5? What's your two-way wing? You could run it back too. Who knows? This is the first time they've gone through this. They got a bad matchup, and it sounds like excuses, but I teeter on the line of excuse and explanation. It's tough to kind of deal with a lot of emotion coming out of this because you lose 2 in a row when you had a tie series, you lost home court advantage, and now your back's against the wall in a must-win Game 5 on Wednesday. But it's something that I feel like is necessary to go through. Even the Kings are going through it now. They were up thinking they're in a driver's seat and they're down. They were up 2-0 and now they're tied 2-2 with the Warriors, and all the pressure shifted back onto them, right? That's another young team. So like these things happen, unfortunately. But there has to be accountability. That goes for everybody.
Yep.
There's always people always want to go with the pitchforks at one person or two people. No, it's collective. It is collective, and you have to learn and grow from these situations. That's coaching, that's players, all across the board, front office, all of it.
A couple more minutes with Spencer Davies from Basketball News. You mentioned physicality, and I'm looking ahead to next year, and a guy like Jared Allen isn't just going to, bulk up and turn into, Rick Mahorn or something. You know what I mean? Like Jared Allen is that's his body type. Evan Mobley, hopefully, is going to add a little more muscle, needs to add some muscle and whatever, get tougher. But aside from that, can you, in your opinion, is it possible to play, in the postseason and kind of get a feel for, okay, wow, I knew regular season's one thing, but the postseason, you got to be a different form of physical. Now I know Jared Allen has some postseason experience, but do you think that's something that you can become more physical, or is it just you are who you are and that's just it?
That's a really good question, Chico, because I don't know. I don't know. And what sucks is that you can't really get a finger on it, because this is basically Jared Allen's first postseason series with the Cavs. He played a few games with Brooklyn when they were in it, 4 years ago or whatever it was. But yeah, it's hard to tell, because last year you got the version of him that was really dominant, and then he goes down with the finger injury, and then he plays 2 games in the play-in that he wasn't himself. Let's be honest, that wasn't Jared Allen. But now you're looking at, he goes into New York and he just gets his butt kicked. Make it what it is. As much as he was, on the help and whatnot like that, you still have to get a body on anybody you see to try and get those rebounds. Try to keep possessions alive. Do what Jared Allen did in the regular season. I don't know how soon you can make that judgment. But again, everything kind of has to be on the table as far as your off season's concerned. The Donovan deal was a 3-for-1, right? Like, do you look at a deal, you go 1 for 3, something like that. Like, I don't know. You put your options on the table. Maybe you see if you can, sneak in the draft or something. I don't know. But with Jarrett specifically, I can't tell you whether it's a yes or a no, because I need more of a sample size than 1.5 postseason series to know. And sometimes it does take some guys some time, but I mean, you look at, the Steven Adams of the world. I know he's not playing right now, but you look at the Steven Adams of the world. You look at like Jonas Valanciunas. You look at some of these bigger guys who can match that physicality. Then yeah, obviously that he's not in that type of camp.
He is Spencer Davies, covering the NBA for basketballnews.com, and of course does a great job, Northeast Ohio native, and you can follow him on Twitter at SpinDavies, at Basketball News. Spence, always a pleasure talking hoops with you. We hope a better outcome on Friday. We hope this goes back to New York, but we shall see. I appreciate your time, pal.
Sure thing, Chico. Thanks, man.
All right, that is, again, Spencer Davies here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. You want to chime in, 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, and you can also do so on YouTube by typing in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit that subscribe button. We do appreciate it. A lot of good stuff there, Nick, from Spencer. And, I think he had some criticism for JB, which is warranted. But then I think there's also that, he did say it, and you and I said this in the first hour, that you can only do so much with the personnel. And look, hopefully it's going to be built. Kobe sees what they need as far as, the postseason and what they're lacking, and certainly what the Knicks have exposed. We go make that better. But I feel like he should be culpable, like any head coach should be culpable. But at the same time, there's only so many guys you can go to and say, well, what about this guy? What about that guy?
Yeah, and I think Spencer said it perfectly, and it's truly the way that I feel is just it's unfortunate that they were dealt this hand. I truly feel like this is just a bad matchup for them. And if we were watching Cavs versus Nets, okay, maybe we're a little less harsh on Jared Allen because he has an easier time in the paint. Maybe we're a little less hard on JB Bickerstaff because the bench, he's getting more out of guys like Jetty Osman. You know, he's getting a little bit out of Ricky Rubio because the Nets just aren't as talented as the Knicks. So I truly do feel like this is just an unfortunate draw. While they're, you know, fans have the right to be fans and fans have the right to be upset at JB because he's currently down 3-1 in a series where he had home court advantage. I think this is something that maybe we all should have saw coming a little bit more.
All right. Again, Game 5 coming up Wednesday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. We'll see if the Cavaliers can extend this. One thing nobody is talking about. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to just ask real quick before we jumped into the next thing. What's your early confidence like for that? Because just me being a lifelong Cleveland sports fan, I'm like weird and twisted in the way I almost have no doubt in my mind, Chico, that they win Game 5 to pull us back in. We're back. They won Game 5. It's 3-2. Now all they have to do is win one in Madison Square Garden. You dropped them both. You got the taste. All you have to do is win one, and then you come back to Cleveland for Game 7 where anything can happen. We know the history of Game 7s in this town from here. I feel like that is just the most Cleveland thing ever, is that they win on Wednesday and they look good just to reel us all back in.
Yeah, I definitely like them on Wednesday. I think they will win on Wednesday. I think it does go back to New York, but I think you can't. They are what they are. And you go into New York and with the, and I know, look, and Tom Thibodeau said it, and he's right. Like the crowd isn't going to win you games, but can they get you fired up? Can they energize you? And can they? And I think we've seen this. I know you kind of roll your eyes sometimes, or some people do, when you say, well, you know, the crowd really got to them. It does happen even for professional athletes. We've seen it across all sports, and I think the Cavaliers have been a bit just, oh my gosh, you know, this is Madison Square Garden, and wow, this place is rocking, and wow, you know, I think it's happened to them. Now, you would have liked it, I guess, if I had it, you know, in a perfect world, I'd like to see them. Okay, you saw it once, you saw it in Game 3, and then Game 4. What really bothered me about Game 4 was that they came out the exact same way they did in Game 3. Now, granted, hey, they were able to erase that 15-point deficit in the third, but I wanted to see more poise, and I do believe that, you know, and Van Gundy kept hitting on this. Oh, they're just not poised. They're just not poised. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with playoff experience. But man, after Game 3, you still had that look in your eye to start the game. And that was frustrating.
But then they came back, and I really thought when they came back, like, okay, just steal this. You know, I tweeted right after the third going into the fourth quarter, like, Donovan Mitchell, please, just win this game.
That's what we all thought, right?
And as bad as they played in Game 3, and as bad as they started Game 4, you find a way to steal that one, and you've stolen back home court advantage. Not only do you win that game, I mean, but now it's a 3-game series, and 2 of them are at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, where you've been so good. So I think that's the bummer. But if you want to find a sick, twisted way to spin it in your head and to make it optimistic, they did go on that run in the fourth quarter, and they were right there toe-to-toe in Madison Square Garden. So if you could replicate Game 2, where they played so well in Cleveland come Wednesday, and then just find somehow, some way, some act of God, steal a game at Game 6, that's your way to twist it. I personally don't really know if I see that happening, but surely there's a universe out there where that happens.
You're saying you like him in Game 5.
I like him in 5 for sure, but I think Game 6 is probably where it fizzles.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought as well.
But crazier things have happened. Crazier things have happened. They've come back from 3-1 and against a much better team and a much bigger stage. I get that LeBron, Kyrie, or Kevin are not walking through that door.
Yeah,
but
one guy. Yeah, that's that's. And
this is the New York Knicks we're talking about. Also, I will say, if you're looking for anything else, you know, they have their history of throwing things away. So,
well, you know,
trying to sprinkle some optimism on this.
So I was thinking about this, and we'll give a nice little plug to our Big Play store. and Cody does great work, right? The Golden State blew a 3-1 lead. You can still get that T-shirt at our Big Play store.
An iconic one.
But like if you say New York blew a 3-1 lead, like that just has a much different. As much as because it brought the championship, and I know this is a first round series, but when it's New York blew a 3-1 lead and not Golden State, I think that would look really good on
What do
a
we
t-shirt.
need? What do we
Really
need
good
to
on a
happen in Game 5 to have them blow that 3-1 lead? Because remember, in the controversial, do the Cavs win the championship if it wasn't for the Draymond
Jalen
Green?
Brunson gets kidnapped. Mitchell Robinson, food poisoning. Not that I want anybody to send a pizza to his room. That was rumored years ago with a certain guy from the Bulls. We wouldn't want that, but. Yeah, I think I think they can win at home, but I think you go back to Madison Square Garden where the Knicks they just seem to want it more. And, I hate using cliches like that are so like, well, how do you, but when you watch guys, I said this earlier in the show, when you watch guys, and this has happened numerous times, it's one thing to get a long rebound. It's another thing to get Mitchell Robinson had better position or Hartenstein had better position. It's a whole other thing when, okay, that ball's there for the taking, but, well, you know what? I'll bet you it goes out of bounds, so I'm not going to This is not game 20 of the regular season. This is the playoffs. The Knicks, that sense of urgency is there for the New York Knicks. It's not there, unfortunately, for our Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, we'll step aside. We'll take a break. When we come back, shift gears to the NFL. The big draft, the NFL draft in Kansas City is coming up. It begins on Thursday. Probably not a lot of interest from Cleveland fans initially because pick 74 is going to be a little while. But there are some very interesting storylines developing. Silly seasons, smoke screens, and one Ohio State quarterback just getting killed right now. And we'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Network. We are back live with the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. Glad to have you along. You can also check us out on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, also on YouTube. Type in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and you are ready to go. All right, before we get into the NFL, I just saw this story. I think it was it yesterday or the day before, Nick, where this lady in Houston, it caught my eye. I have a nephew that lives in Houston, Kent State grad, by the way. Teacher down in the Houston area. And this lady said that she had a food truck, and there's a lot of those. Like, he got married a couple years ago, and there were one of those like authentic Mexican food trucks was planted outside his reception, and I may or may not have eaten, just a ridiculous amount of food. But she had one of these said food trucks. And a bear, like a big black bear, broke in, not even broke in, like I say broke in like it picked the lock, just,
pushed his way in.
Got in there, and according to the report, he drank, I think they said 71 cans of soda. Started with Orange Crush, which that once you start drinking that's like liquid, that's tough.
I'm not a big pop guy.
Yeah, I don't either, but I do know that Orange Crush is pretty. That's pretty damn tasty, very syrupy. So I'm thinking, he had that one to start, which is what they said. Well, but he stopped, ironically enough. Like, he didn't really touch any of the diet stuff. This is, no lie. What I want to know, and off the beaten path, but it's been bothering me the last few days because I'm kind of a loser, but that's all right. We know that animals like bears, like they have, like they'll even say it with like dogs and cats. Oh, their stomachs, they have no problem digesting something. Yeah. Can even a black bear down like I'm picturing now, like, is that bear still alive?
I'm sure.
Can you, I say you, like, it's a human being, but can even a black bear drink 71 cans of soda? And God knows what else he got into, and just kind of wake up the next day and be like, oh, all right, let's go see what else is out there.
He probably feels a little weird. Like, he probably doesn't feel like himself.
Like Cocaine Bear?
Yeah. Like, he's probably not willing to. It's probably the Cocaine Bear, but the opposite. Like, it's like Coma Bear, where he's probably just like real sleepy, kind of dragging,
a lot of sugar,
not
too,
really
though.
Ready to put his head into the water and start hunting for fish. I think it's probably one of those situations where he's probably not really feeling like himself, but I'm sure he's out there kicking somewhere.
I mean, if you're a bear like that, a lot of those food trucks, like, that'd be a nice place to hang out.
Oh, easy pickings.
You don't have to worry about fish and all that
Especially
stuff.
too, like I think about here in Cleveland, we have like that Lakewood Food Truck Park.
Yeah.
Think about like the garbage if you were a bear that you could get into out there. I'm not hunting a day in my life. I'm just jumping in the dumpster once it's nighttime and everybody leaves. And I'm sure you got your pickings of Barrio leftovers. We were just talking tacos. I mean, there's probably pizza in there. If you're thirsty, there's probably a slushy truck that slushed in whatever waste that they had from the day. Yeah, if you were a bear, man, just hang out by the garbage. You don't even have to break into the truck. But
I just, like I said, I know their digestive systems, and we'll end it with this. I know, people aren't, but I was just thinking about that. I'm like, well, they didn't say if the bear did it make it out. Did they find it down the road? Just collapsed.
He's just on his couch watching probably the Cavs.
And then he wanted to get some more Orange Crush and do it all over again after watching that effort. All right. Let's move along here. We got the NFL draft. First round, of course, coming up on Thursday. Now, this is thankfully, we've had the Cavs, even though I know it's been a rough 4 games, certainly 3 of the 4 games, and they're down 3-1. I get it. But damn it, they provided us a ton of excitement, not only all season, but certainly here in the postseason. And really, it's given us, along with the Guardians, but it's very early in their season as well, but it's given us something to really, sink our teeth into, because the draft, while years ago we would have started debating in November, and did, November, December, January, February, March. Hey, it's here. Okay, fine. I mean, we would go through every possible scenario. Well, now the Browns, and I think this is a good problem to have. Obviously, it means you've had some success to some degree. Obviously, you got to have much more, because the reason you don't have ones right now is because of Deshaun Watson. But what is your interest level? First of all, what is your interest level for the NFL draft in general? Not just the Browns, just in general, the NFL draft this year.
I think I'm interested for a couple different reasons. I think first round, I'm interested, obviously, to see what happens with CJ Stroud. I want to see what happens at 2. Number 2 overall. Talk about some of the scenarios, silly season that kind of goes down this week from starting today on Monday through Thursday. Different smoke screens and stuff start to go around. But word today is that Houston doesn't really know yet what they're going to go with 2. They could pass on a quarterback, which could easily just be a smoke screen, and they could have their eye on one of these quarterbacks. But I think really the draft as of today, as of Monday, starts with the Texans at number 2. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I want to see where Stroud goes. And then the trades. I want to see, who does what crazy thing this year. We know that Aaron Rodgers thing is out there, but last year people forget the AJ Brown thing. That wasn't talked about going into the draft. That just kind of happened on draft night. Same with the Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown thing with the Ravens. That wasn't something that was highly speculated. That's for sure going to go down. It just went down. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to more so than anything, is those Shefty bombs come Thursday evening.
So the reason I'm smiling is you mentioned A.J. Brown, and I don't think anyone told Mike Vrabel that was going. That is one of the best live reactions. A lot of times you say, well, they're in the war room, are those cool shit? That was about as telling a shot as you're going to get. He was pissed off because he was just asked, if you remember, he was asked a couple weeks prior about, hey, what's going on, AJ Brown? He's like, he kind of laughed at the reporter. He's like, guys, AJ Brown is going nowhere.
Right.
He's we don't have many weapons. He didn't say this, but you could see him. We don't have many weapons, but that guy is, physically and everything, he's going nowhere. And he meant that. And anybody who thought he was BSing, just look at that shot of him in the war room after they traded. He's like, he gets up, and Vrabel's kind of he wears his emotions on his sleeve, safe to say. And he literally walked out of the room for a couple moments because I think he wanted to strangle the GM. Wow. And sorry, when you said A.J. Brown, I immediately think of Vrabel doing that.
I think that's also the other thing that I just look forward to during the draft now is just the pageantry of it all, the drama of it all.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a kid left in the green room? Who's going to show up in the wonkiest outfit?
The Brady Quinn. Gosh, you could really look a little bit more put together, couldn't you? Remember Joe Theismann criticizing him?
Yeah.
Your tie was a little undone. I think it was Your tie was a little undone. Your hair looked. Sorry, dude. I was kind of stressed. I was free falling in the draft.
Yeah. So I just think that kind of big drama, and just excitement is really what I look forward to come Thursday. But then for Friday for the Browns, I think it's one of those things where I'm not as excited or truthfully, Chico, as prepared as I feel like I should be, just because at 74, it's it could really be anything. Nothing would really surprise me. And
I think maybe if we want to zone in on something instead of player, I think it's just much easier to just say position group. Defensive end, pass rushers are there's a lot of them. Would they go there? We know they still need help on the inside too. Defensive tackle's not as deep, but then they talk about wide receivers, talk about linebackers where they need help as well. I think it's going to be defense, but I think that's where I would imagine most Browns fans, because even the most diehard that they always have their, and I always love this too, first round. You can have a decent idea and project your guy, but you always have those fans out there that are like, I think at number 74 they're going to take that kid out of Penn State, and I'm like, how can you even think that he could go in the first round? He could go in. you don't even know what the board. I can't even begin to know.
No,
where
I've messed around with some of the mock draft simulators just to see, and it seems like a lot of those guys, like the marquee guys that you've heard of, are going to be in the first 75 picks. Like, unless, and that's what's cool about the simulators too, they let you trade around a little bit. So unless you move up a little bit, you're probably not going to get a guy that you've heard of before or watched much tape on outside of their YouTube highlights that are along to a Drake song. You know, it's just there's just
add that in there.
not much research or homework that you could really do on individual players at this point, because they're so far back in the draft.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, like you had in fair or foul. Will they leave with 8 picks? They have 8 picks. Will they leave with 8 selections? You know, when you have 2 each in 3, 4, and 5, it does. You know, do they package something and move? I mean, look, if there's a guy that they really like, particularly, you know, on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm sure Jim Schwartz, you know, is going to be weighing in heavily on this too. If Schwartz is like, man, if he's there, so and so, and I wouldn't know the first, you know, who to say.
I think one of the big like Browns fan favorites is Jack Campbell. He's a middle
out of Iowa.
Oh,
Captain Jack,
middle linebacker, and he's projected like a mid-second round pick. So that's a situation where you could fathom, okay, maybe if they do package up some of those picks and make a leap, Jack Campbell, from middle linebacker from Iowa, could be that type of target that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that, you know, what I don't even know what his numbers were combine-wise, and I just know he was everywhere for Iowa. And when you watched him against Ohio State, like big play after big play after big, and he did that all year. Yeah, wow, that's an interesting name. As soon as you said that name, I'm like, ooh, wow. Yeah, he would be.
I think he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. So, but then that's the issue. Is that a guy? Is that a position? We know how the Browns operate. You know, all the variables that go into.
And you never know what the criteria is.
Right.
Like what are there?
The mystery of, is that worth trading up for a player of that magnitude? We won't. The fact of the matter is, we won't know till Friday night.
No. We won't. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network, and want to hear from you as well. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. Also on Twitter and on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. By the way, just because you brought up Iowa, I've got to say it, because this one Twitter this weekend, it was very simple, but it was after Game 3. And I really thought the first half, there was a clip from Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, which we'll get to. Maybe we'll actually play this tomorrow. But it was bad. I mean, you watched it. We all watched it. And really on both sides. Like the Knicks, it was just horrible to watch. But some guy tweeted at me and said that watching that half of basketball was akin to watching Iowa's offense last season, which was... I think about as good of an analogy as you're going to get.
That's good. That's good.
Iowa's offense was terrible.
What was the Thursday night football game that was the clunker that everyone was making fun of? It was the Denver Broncos and who? And it was so low scoring. It was it was like the hardest watch. I'm blanking on who the Broncos played in that game.
It wasn't Vegas, was it?
Maybe it was, but regardless, I tweeted out there at halftime of that game, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk tweeted out at halftime, this was in October, he said, I usually smoke a cigar during the second half. I may go smoke some meth at halftime for this one. So I screenshotted that right when he sent that off, because I was like, he's probably hammered, and tweeted that. So I forever will have that screenshot, but I tweeted that off at halftime of that game.
I wonder if, like a lot of Cavs fans, when it got that bad, like, did you? I mean, and I don't want to hear like, well, if you turned off the game, shame on you. You're not a real Cavs fan. But I mean, that was Game 3 was bad in the first half. I said it. If it wasn't for Van Gundy and Jackson, I would have probably had to look away for a while. Find something, go somewhere, fix something to eat, condition my hair, something like that.
I did. So I'll give a little bit away of the Tipico content that we filmed down in New York. We were actually at the Big Apple Browns backers bar there, which converts into Cavs backers for big games and the playoffs. So I was there watching the game with people, and obviously that first half was so bad. With like 4 or so minutes to go, I was like, if I call my Uber right now, I bet it gets here at halftime and I could be back for the second half. Get some fresh air, step out of this hot, sweaty, congested bar, clear my head in the car.
Where I'm getting yelled at by Knicks fans.
Yeah, and be back in my hotel to start the third quarter. So that's exactly what I did. I pieced out of there at halftime. Irish goodbye to everybody that I knew, and was in my hotel room to watch the start of that third quarter, where it was a little bit more interesting, but really it was just more of the same. I mean, that was one of the worst games of basketball that I've ever seen the Cavs play in my life.
So if you watch the game on Friday and you watch that first half, I said if it wasn't for Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, it would have been really tough for me to get through it. But I thought they were funny, and I love listening to those two. And I think Breen, I know there's the talk about, man, could you get any more New York than Mike Breen, Jeff Van Gundy, and Mark Jackson? True, but they were having this discussion like, is this really is this really great defense, or is this just bad basketball? Because neither team could really throw it in the ocean, and it was really, turnovers galore. It was awful. And, they're going back and forth, and I think they're trying to be as gentle as they can. And then finally, when Isaac Okoro, and I'm not picking on Isaac Okoro, but when Isaac Okoro, I think he gets a rebound or maybe even got a loose ball, like in the paint. And immediately, like, he turns and, he's got guys on each side. So, numbers get out in the fast break. But it's like this was the story of the Cavs, like too amped up to. He just jumps right in the air and then comes back down. And they're like, and I remember thinking at the time, like, did I see something? What? And Van Gundy just stopped. And Jeff Van Gundy said, guys, you guys are asking about bad basketball, good basketball, whatever. He goes, I just saw a guy jump up in the air after getting a loose ball for no reason, jumped up in the air trying to start a fast break. This is bad basketball. And in the moment, if you saw it, it is, and heard it, it was absolutely, positively hilarious, because it really was the kind of a microcosm of what we have seen from when things have gone bad for the Cavs. They've gone bad, and that was it. Like, man, why did he even jump?
It looked like his controller died. Like when you're playing a video game, you're playing 2K, and your controller dies, and your player just starts doing all this random stuff because you've lost control of them. It looked like Isaac Okoro's controller died in real life.
Yeah. Sorry, and again, not picking on Isaac. Everybody's culpable, but yeah, it was that bad. All right, as we wind things down, we mentioned the draft. Tomorrow on the show, going to have Nick Shook, our good buddy with NFL.com, another Northeast Ohio native. And we'll talk to Nick not only about the Browns, but certainly just going around the NFL, the different scenarios. And I mentioned C.J. Stroud, and we'll get much more into this tomorrow and throughout the week. They have the Wonderlic test, which I think is still in existence. Am I right? I think they still.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They're still rocking with that.
So there's another test that they give now that I believe is, I don't know what it's called. If I heard it, I would know it. But essentially, it's like, how quick are you able to digest information? Or I don't know if it's necessarily how quick you can read. And you know where I'm going with this. So it's going to be like, oh, well, that translates to the court. Well, apparently Bryce Young was through the roof as far as, and he's a very intelligent quarterback. I got nothing against Bryce Young. I loved watching him play this year. Bryce Young did really well. I think Will Levis did very well. Apparently they said C.J. Stroud scored 14% something. I don't know. But he has been, there's always one guy, particularly with quarterbacks. And as we said, it's smokescreen season. Hell, that starts months before. But now is when we're starting to get all of the crazy rumors. But it doesn't sound like this is like a rumor. This has been going now for about a week straight. And the other thing, and this one blew my mind, because, okay, look, I know you're trying, different teams are trying to throw stuff out there and whatever. But there was the one quote, I can't remember who it was, said, well, C.J. Stroud, he was borderline uncoachable last year. Like, you talk to guys at Ohio State. And Ryan Day was like, what? Like, and I mean, we would have heard, especially being in this area, and I'm an Ohio State alum. I love the Buckeyes. I follow the Buckeyes. Bohm is, you can't criticize the Buckeyes. Well, I'm not as bad as Bohm in that regard, but like, I think we would have heard something before now about C.J. Stroud not being a coachable kid and having an attitude issue, or never heard anything of. But now, and that's the thing about this draft, fair or unfair, everything's fair game. And it's like, well, we're going to throw this at the wall, throw this at the wall. Unfortunately for C.J. Stroud, Nick, we don't know what's going to happen Thursday. But unfortunately for C.J. Stroud, this bit of mud slinging seems to be sticking quite well when it comes to C.J.
I still think he's a top 10 pick. I still think a lot of it's smoke. And I don't see him, okay, maybe he slides, out of 1 and 2, whatever. I think that'd be a huge mistake by the Texans, but I don't think he's sliding very far. I think a lot of this is much ado about nothing.
Like, I mean, Indianapolis is... It sounds, would somebody from Indianapolis be trying to put that out there because, well, hey, we'd like him to fall to us? I mean, and I, there's so many question marks which will get answered tomorrow and throughout the week with these quarterbacks. Like, Anthony Richardson. When I hear guys say, and I've heard numerous guys say this, that as far as upside and in terms of just everything that he possesses, not just the athletic ability, but the strong arm. And this is going to sound ridiculous because it almost seems like every year we hear this about somebody. But I've heard guys, draft analysts, say, like, this guy is as talented a quarterback, just physically speaking, as we've seen or they've seen in a long time, sometimes maybe ever, with some of these guys. Like, his athletic ability, his arm strength, everything is off the charts. So, okay, how high does he go? Will Levis, like, I can't say I sat here and watched a whole bunch of Will Levis, but correct me if I'm wrong. Will Levis was at Penn State and transferred to Kentucky. And, like, I mean, Sean Clifford's good for Penn State, but I didn't think he was anything like, oh, my God, knock my socks off. So, like, but now all of a sudden, Will Levis, like, the buzz is... This is where it is such a inexact science. Like, you just don't know how this thing's going to play out. But the quarterback situation, I mean, Anthony Richardson, where does he go? How far does C.J. Stroud? If he does fall, does he fall? Does C.J. Stroud, is this all a big smokescreen and Carolina is taking him?
Wow, could you imagine that? I
said about Frank Reich, like, you go through all of his QBs and he doesn't have somebody of that stature. Well, 6 foot, if he's anything below 6'2", we can't take him. No, I don't think it's that ridiculous. But if you look at the history of his quarterbacks, they're certainly not of that ilk. So you don't know what to believe, and that's what does make the draft, even for Browns fans who we know don't have picks until Friday and 3 in the third, and boy, this is going to be. But I am really curious, like you are, to see how some of these scenarios play out. And also Aaron Rodgers. Like, Green Bay wants some assurances. You know that. Carolina, what do they... But as far as the trade with Aaron, it's going down. It's going down on draft night. It's just a matter of, is it going to be after the first round or is it going to be before the first round? So we'll get all of those questions, maybe some of those questions. I don't know if we can say definitively answered. But Nick Shook tomorrow, and all week we're going to be talking about it. And, of course, getting you ready for the Cleveland Cavaliers Wednesday night as they try to keep this series alive with the Knicks. They're currently down 3-1. And, by the way, just because they trailed Nick Padone, you can still, courtesy of our buddies, which you partied with all weekend at Tipico, you can bet $45 on Big Play Boost for Donovan Mitchell. Will this be the game? This might not be a bad, go for it. $45 on Big Play Boost for Donovan Mitchell to score 45-plus in any game versus the Knicks, including Wednesday. If he does, you will get paid, and you'll get a free Cleveland basketball shirt from the Big Play store. Bouncing back after a very poor where he knows he played. He admitted, I played like shit. We'll see. All right. Thanks to Nick Padone. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We will be back with you again coming up tomorrow at 1, NickShookNFL.com. Don't forget tonight, 9 o'clock. I'm sure the Reflog show, and Nick, you included in that, are going to have plenty of thoughts and takeaways and probably nice things to say about what transpired in New York. So we'll do that.
Talking a little draft too tonight to kind of
a little draft as well.
Kind of ease the pain. We got Thor Nydstrom, NFL draft analyst, joining the
Easy
show
for
to
you to
kind
say.
of stop some of the draft or some of the Cavs talk rather. And
you guys don't mess around. You guys at the Reflog show, you don't mess around, which I'm not surprised at. We mess around all the time, and we'll continue to mess around tomorrow at 1. Until then, make it a great Monday night, everybody. See ya.